All right, hello everyone. Welcome to another Wolfram Language Design Review, one of several today, I think. All right, where are we starting here?
Import-export formats, I think.
Okay, so let's take an example. Look at an example here. Boy, this is getting pretty funky. And I'm kind of wondering, for things like list plot, we have this syntax with an arrow. And I'm wondering if we could do the same thing here.
Yeah.
I mean, this is a bit of a mess.
This is
And I even think
sort of a part-like, I mean, we've inherited it, but this is sort of a part-like syntax.
yeah, but what's happening in the rest of the import world? Piotr, maybe you can speak to that.
Right. So notice that after tabular, string tabular, there is all, right? Symbol all, and then list of strings. Basically,
Yes.
we can partially access rows and columns in this case, right? In the case
What
of
does
CSV.
the all mean? The all means
all means
all rows.
everything, all rows.
Okay, well, how about the following possibility? Okay, which I wonder whether we've actually used, and I wonder whether this is a possible way to skin many cats, so to speak. What about the possibility of a syntax like this that automatically imports a tabular?
I think that would be really weird, right? I mean, most import formats can't be imported as tabular.
I
Right.
understand, but when they can be, this is a way to get to it without going through 6 layers of I mean, the fact is, had we had the foresight 30 years ago to import CSV as tabular, which we didn't have 30 years ago, then that would have been the default, right? But we didn't have that.
Right. Tabular is not even a default element for CSV. It's data.
Right.
Also, there are usually some other problems with CSVs, like stripping, like sometimes auto-recognizing and stripping things. Auto-recognizing column names.
Here's another possibility.
We also don't want to lock ourselves into rules for that first argument.
Fine. What about the possibility of a thing called tabular import that is like, well, the other possibility is in toTabular, what happens if we have a file there?
That's not supported currently.
I know that, but I'm asking, is that a way we could do this? The other possibility, which I kind of favor, I mean, this is getting to be a very hokey syntax. Am I making sense?
So to be clear, it was all supported before, except instead of list of strings for columns, it was list of indices. So the only new thing here is list of
I understand,
strings.
but Piotr, it may be the only new thing, but this is a very important piece of functionality, particularly now that we're dealing with highly multi-columnar data, and it's a lousy, hokey syntax. Right? So yes, you could get to it, but everybody who's going to get to it has to ask an LLM or, read some corner of the documentation. Am I making sense?
Yes.
Well, I think having toTabular support would, file in addition to, I don't think it should, that should be at the
we
cost.
shouldn't get rid of this. No, we shouldn't get rid of that. But I mean, let's look at just how funky this has to be. Okay, sub-elements for partial data. Okay, columns. All right, well, so it is there.
Yeah.
But it's pretty hokey, and I think, this format, as you say, there are lots of details about, importing a CSV that are quite complicated. And I don't think are well parameterized by the generic import. I mean, what import is great at is, I drag a file into a notebook and it uses the default import elements and it just works. And I'm thrilled, right? But as soon as we're doing these much more controlled things, I don't think it's,
So the problem here is if you go to import options in the doc page, these level of CSV specific specifications don't necessarily make sense to toTabular. Right. And this is kind of a universal problem in import export, is that every single one of these formats in 200 plus formats might have some very specific behavior with a name that makes most sense for it. And those
Sure,
names might conflict between formats.
absolutely. And
So
that's
this is a very general import option documentation problem.
yes. I mean, I'm not that concerned about that, but this is, look, the point is there's a common workflow, which is I've got a CSV. Maybe we will have some GUI type thing that helps with the import, and maybe tabular import, if you type it in, will come up with some kind of autocomplete thing that allows you to do some, some early manipulation of that. By the
So
way,
with partial import, this is going to be very useful if ahead of time you know your data is super large and you really need to reduce your import time. But another thing to consider is that Tabular is so much faster that if you import all your data and then take parts, it's not nearly as detrimental as it used to be.
I understand. I understand. I mean, fair enough. Okay, by the way, I assume that missing value pattern was correctly, uh, interfaced to whatever we're doing with missing values in Tabular.
I'm sure it's much older. No.
That's not a good answer, Roger. That's a very bad answer.
But Pietro, didn't we
Well,
implement that for this particular?
well, missing value pattern option was added to CSV together with the tabular element.
Okay,
Yeah,
And
so they should be pretty similar.
okay, all right, and it's in two Tabular, so it's fine. It's all good, Roger.
Yeah,
You're
that's
wrong.
good. That's okay.
So,
Yes.
um,
But see that there's, it's great that it's in two tabular. I always think of transform missing. Yeah,
yeah.
but
Well, I don't know how
at
it
that
relates
time
to
you
transform
but
missing.
but see there you
Oh,
already
for God's sake!
have
Look at
missing.
this! Look at this! Look at this! Look at this! Look at this! Where's transform missing on this C also? Come on, guys. Okay, that needs to get fixed, right? You agree?
Yes.
It's just unbelievable why something like that wouldn't get done. Okay. Okay. This seems like it's one of the most complicated of the import specifications. Is that a true statement, Piotr?
yes, it is.
I mean, if we had a GUI for this, would that be a good thing?
We've actually done some reviewing of GUIs that we've seen in products, and this tabular import is one of them where they do GUIs.
I'm aware. I'm asking for us,
Hmm.
given what we
Well,
got to
There
do.
was a there
I
was
was
a
thinking
series
what
of
we should
meetings.
do is along the lines of, like a file opener where it comes up where you need it.
Of
We
course.
already had a series of meetings with John Foltz about drag and drop for like spreadsheet related formats, where when you drag and drop, it pulls up a GUI and lets you control some of these things. We went through some UX with, I think it was Pavel at the time, but this was maybe 7 years ago.
Hmm.
Well, so that clearly didn't go anywhere.
Yeah.
Okay. So
But
let's
but
But
we
at
we
least we
re
have something for it. And there's already kind of layouts and designs started.
well, that will be good to pull in. Okay, but let's go through this. Okay. I mean, clearly supporting this is fine, right?
yeah.
Given the subterranean, details of this whole thing, right? The
Hmm.
question is, what's a better way to do it? And there's several possibilities. One possibility would be an autocomplete mechanism. So one is the drag and drop and bringing something up. Another is, let's imagine that I got this, okay? And then I type comma. And that at this point, an autocomplete comes up because it can see that there's a .csv file here. See what I'm saying?
Yes.
So
Yeah,
that would be what's that?
yeah, that's what I meant by sort of on the input.
Right. But the thing is that for example, the file picker, we don't want to put that in the file picker because that is
No.
we would prefer to use the system file picker. And I think we are, we made modifications to it, but we don't really want to make a lot of modifications to that. It's hard to find things there.
In terms of autocomplete, we've already discussed some of these things. First off, like actually making sure that we're not just looking at the file extension, but it is a call to file format. So that has to be quite fast for the front end execution. Then that just gets you to the elements. And then from the elements, if you want to, and then you type comma all, it's going to have to import part of the file to get information about what to autocomplete there.
Okay, I
Those are just
understand that.
technical problems for the
I
front end.
understand that. I understand. So, but the
Okay.
first thing would be to bring up a GUI here in this state, to bring up a GUI, and then which would be the same GUI that you get in the drag and drop probably. And that GUI could have a button that says preview. See what
Sure.
I'm saying?
Yeah.
Or whatever is appropriate. I mean, certainly knowing how big the file is trivial for that GUI, and that could happen instantaneously. Am I making sense?
Well, in terms of byte count, yes. In terms of number of rows and columns,
No. We have no idea about that byte count, because if the byte count is half a megabyte, it's no problem. We can do all kinds of things. If the byte count is 3 gigabytes, then it's a different story.
It does depend on format, but
No.
yeah,
I'm talking
roughly.
about CSV primarily.
Okay.
I mean, let's
Fair.
pioneer whatever it is we're doing. I mean, I think it's a general mechanism that we'd love to see, to have, a thing where import elements get nicely listed and so on. I mean, the fact that I'm not seeing import elements here at all is really bad,
Yeah, actually.
right? So that's the thing for user assistance. Could somebody communicate that to that group, please?
Yeah, this is maybe you,
No,
because
is
you're
somebody
missing
going to do that, or am I doing
Yes,
that?
yes.
Well, but
Yeah.
if you start a quote there, does something come up? Okay,
Pretty
not the
lame.
right thing.
It's not the
Yeah.
right thing.
No, but I know that we've discussed this.
Because those are the generic things, right? We need
Right.
that we'd need generic. Sorry, we'd need specific C++ front end code to
Yeah.
recognize the extension and do something special. I mean, all of which is possible. It just means it will have to compete with other front end priorities.
Yeah. I'm sending mail since nobody responded. Who's project managing here?
I might have been talked over, but I thought I said that we got it, Stephen. I might have been
Yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't hear
sorry.
that.
I didn't hear anything either. So
I might have clicked too quickly. Sorry.
Okay. All right. There's no problem in doing this. It follows this format.
yes.
But
Yeah, in the direction, I like this. That's why we went down and started surveying just recently.
okay, fine.
Okay.
But so that's one way to get into this. The other
Mhm.
possibility is a tabular import. Actually, wait a minute. Import string imports to a string, right? No, it imports
No, it
from a
imports
string.
from a string.
Right. Okay. So it should be called tabular import. And
Right,
I think we should.
just like cloud imports from the cloud.
Is it
From
if
are you joking? You are joking, because right, import string but cloud import, right? Sorry, were you making
Sorry,
was that
yeah,
ironic?
sorry. I was momentarily confused, but yes, right. We have cloud import, which also
Imports
imports
from the cloud,
cloud.
Right.
right?
And you can also just import from a cloud object, and cloud
Yeah,
import is ultimately just an
I was never
but
entirely clear why we have cloud import, but we do.
exactly. There's not necessarily a reason for cloud import,
Well,
but
there is a
besides
reason,
that
because
point,
you can have a string. It's very convenient. You just have a string for the
no, fair. You can just give the cloud object string there. That makes
right.
sense.
But I
But
mean,
so
it
for
is a URL. So in fact, import could be coming, pulling stuff from the URL. So I'm arguing
It's a
against
bit
myself there.
complicated, yeah, but so in the case of tabular import here, this is starting to sound like semantic import almost, where that's kind of a much bigger can of worms that we
Yes. Yes, it is a bigger can of worms, but the point is this would give us the freedom to have lots of options, lots of detailed things related to Tabular. We should move on in this review, but I think for these purposes, this is fine. Okay. And we should be trying to figure out how to do this autocomplete and then design, what we need to do here.
Yeah.
Make sense?
So we have a few items a little bit in a moment here, but let's do time and event series first.
Okay, well, this is all good, but I mean, this is import elements for what? For a CSV, for example?
Yeah, almost everything that's a tabular can be also time series and event series.
Okay.
It's listed in the new guide page, the last bullets.
Yeah.
Okay.
So this is useful to have sort of what are the things that can be time and event series?
Yes. But I have a question. I mean, what if the date is sprayed across 3 columns? Can
Yeah,
we deal with that properly?
No, it is more. I mean, I don't know if we can, but we're definitely not dealing with it now. And I think that the right thing is to actually use the tools to deal with it if it's weird like that.
Yeah, at that point you want to import as tabular, column-wise combine, and then time series of tabular.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know what the common, like an Apache log, for example, that has date stamps.
Hmm.
I guess that we just handle. The date
Yeah.
stamp goes into the right place.
Right. And they're event, so it would be an event series naturally, pretty naturally.
By the way, this should surely be emphasized at the top of this page that's how you get into, that's how you get one of these formats to be.
Yes. Yeah, you're right.
My God, VisiCalc data interchange format.
Hmm.
That's a blast from the past. Does anybody still use that?
I have no idea.
Okay. Okay, well, that's lovely. What do we have to talk about with that?
There are things here, actually. So I've been surprised at how remarkably useful the statistical formats are. So we keep finding more and more data in those.
Good.
We,
Okay.
SAS and SPSS formats and Stata.
Okay, well, good. A lot of strange government stuff in those formats, I believe.
Actually, a lot of in social science, they use those a lot.
Yes,
So,
yes, I know. That's why SPSS was called Statistical Program for the Social Sciences.
oh.
I could tell you its whole history. Okay. Arcdown import. Okay, good. I mean, is there any? Okay. What is this really looking like? The tree import of XML.
This doesn't look good. It needs more work. We're gonna do a lot of work there.
The layout is not really readable for most of the time. That's the problem.
What are we trying to achieve with XML import? I mean, in other
Okay.
words, how much of XML is
yeah.
being
So
used by other formats, which we're handling
okay.
differently? Go ahead.
Yeah. So I think what we need is sort of a modernized processing layer for XML so that we can, I mean, both use for ourselves, to supply ready-made import formats for more things, but also the sort of 2 or 3 key use cases, which is sort of easily extract some data for something that we don't have. There's thousands of these formats, right? So if you have some good intermediary form and we have good processing to extract data, that gives you pretty much what you want.
Okay.
But
give me 5 examples where things are in raw XML these days, or XML that we can't read because it's actually an encoding of some other format.
I mean, we can read, I think, most XMLs, but it's just very hard to process them.
No, I understand that, but what I'm asking is, there was a period of time, 15 years ago or something, when everybody was going to make everything into XML, and it was going to be the brilliant, structured.
It's still heavily used. So Music's XML is one that we just talked about in a design review.
I understand, but that's the whole point is, Roger, that it's music XML.
Yeah.
we don't want raw. I mean, we might internally want to use raw XML, but the users don't give a
No,
damn that it's
but there's a
XML.
No.
lot of objects in the world for which we don't have an object. Like we don't have, I don't know, a reference entry. Okay, but
Well,
there's
we actually
perfect.
do have a mechanism for that. We
I don't
actually
think
do.
that. Yeah, I
So I
know,
think
but
one point here is like let's take the music XML case where we are actually using a specific library that talks about it in terms of music XML terms, not in terms of XML terms. But there might be some information that we could use to make our importer stronger if we examine part of the raw XML. And if we're able to parse that easier, we can make a lot of inferences. And
Okay,
so, but
look, here's the question. I mean, we got a lot of things to do, and we got to prioritize things.
Hmm?
My impression was 15 years ago, XML was supposed to be kind of, XML predated HTML. So it's even much older than that, 25 years ago or more. The my God, it's even more than that. Um, yeah,
XML is still heavily used, but so is JSON. So both of those,
exactly. Right.
JSON and XML,
JSON is
are
a
not.
much simpler format, much simpler format. I mean, they're coming at it from two ends. XML is
Yeah,
coming at it from the very complicated end. JSON is coming up from the simple end.
yeah, both are
And
heavily used, and I think those are
oh,
data pools we want access to.
no, I understand that, Roger. I'm asking this question. Okay, the there are different DTDs for that's what they're called, right? For XML. My
Yeah,
God, it's been so long since I
Yep.
even talked about these things.
right.
Um, I mean, I remember in the year 2000 when we were doing that MathML stuff.
Sure.
Okay, XML was jumping everywhere, and everybody was like,
I
XML is
know.
the future. Okay,
Yes, and
I
HTML5 and all of that eventually.
yes, right.
Mhm.
I think
So
that XML became more of an implementation detail over the years.
that's what I think too. And my
Yes.
question is, can we know, can we get a list of what are our targets? Let's say we had better internal XML handling. Would we use our own internal XML handling to do music XML, or would you use some library anyway? That's my question.
For that particular case, you would still use the library.
Okay, well,
But
but let's get a list of other. Um,
But
there's
we
good
have,
Right.
raw
I mean,
XML
we have a
Right.
examples. We
notebook
should
with
collect
1,000
them.
formats in that is target, as an example of an initial review like that.
Yeah,
yeah,
that's not a
okay.
good example of music XML, but we can definitely come up with a ton of raw XML examples.
I'm just
But we didn't bring it here. We're not, that's not part of the design review.
well, I know, but I mean,
Right. And
this
right.
is an
And there
example.
right.
By
And
the time
there
it's
right. And
beer
there's lots.
XML, list of XML markup languages. But maybe this has something. Okay, so this is a good place to start, maybe if somebody's maintained this in a reasonable way.
Sort of. I mean, like in the case of docx, for example, you really don't think of it as importing as XML at
No,
all,
no,
despite
you
the
don't.
fact that, and that's the case for a
MathML,
lot of these
no.
things.
Right, that's my
Yeah.
point. That's the point I'm making. That,
So despite there being all these things built on top of it, there's still a ton of raw XML out there, is our claim.
okay.
Right. And there's lots of, like XLST and right. There are lots of tools that are very standard that are used to, to do sort of generic operations on the raw XML, even if it's part of a, more specialized format.
Yeah, okay, but I'm saying I think it's very complicated to build. I mean, XSLT, for example, has a bunch of tree walking capabilities that are quite interesting and that we have
I mean,
versions
so
of in a different
but
way.
we also want to drive our tree transformation development. And I think that this is a good use case of trees.
Yes, I understand that claim. Okay.
Okay.
I think that my concern about it is that, you know, like XSLT, for example, has a lot of state dependent stuff that is rather different from our functional way of doing things. It's much more like a file pointer. We've had file pointers in our language since the very beginning.
Can we
I
do that
don't
when
think
we
people.
do that review? Because we don't have it here now to talk
Okay,
about.
fine, fine. I'm just saying I'm not as wildly enthusiastic about.
I got it.
I think we need to understand what is the output from XML processing that we think is realistically achievable.
Exactly. But we
Okay.
don't have that here.
Okay, fine. Okay. Um,
So new tutorial, before you go to image, there is a new tutorial called Markdown.
Good. Can I get to it from the Markdown page?
If you go to T in your, you need to go to source. T tutorial.
Probably not yet, but it's on my list to update Markdown page.
Good. Looks useful. I'm sure it'll be widely read by LLMs who care about Markdown.
Right.
And humans too, but okay, so I mean, our handling of metadata, what is this? I don't even understand what this is. What is this?
This is just was a license change that forced us to do a tool replacement.
I see. So but this is just the name of the library.
Yes.
But also improvements, bug fixes, speed ups,
okay, so let me make a comment
supporting
about this.
more metadata.
Right. You know, what we did originally with image metadata in the image, image and so on, is just to say, throw it all in a vat. We don't really know what the structure of it is.
Exactly.
Right? I think that, increasingly that stuff has become more standardized, and we should be looking at it in a more structured way. Have we done that yet? I mean,
we have not. I think that when we start to rethink this more systematically, I think we should think about them sort of as annotations and survival of processing and other things.
yes, I kind of agree. But I think, using an association will help, and this and that and the other, standardizing some things.
Yeah. But right now it's dumped and then lost immediately. I mean, it's in there, but then lost, first processing.
Yeah, that's true, Roger. I just want to point out that the actual, standards like XIF, XMP, and IPTC, these are the standards, and we import them as nested associations, and I think this is all correct at this point.
Yeah,
we just
right.
need to add processing.
No, I understand, but
we don't have functions that deal with that. So if you take an image and you color negate the image, does it still have the same EXIF data or not?
Yes. It's I mean, it's either completely dropped or preserved. We don't do anything with this.
No, I understand that, but I'm asking, is it preserved when you do image processing operations on images?
Well,
unknown.
I don't remember off the top of my head. Some functions may preserve it, some may drop it, and that's also not good.
Yeah, right. Okay, we should look at that. But I agree, we have no functions for dealing with that metadata.
Right.
I mean, I don't know to what extent
you could pick it out and do your own thing.
No, I understand. I don't know to what extent people have misbehaved with the metadata in the following sense. There are some formats where, originally it was supposed to be a such and such format, but then people started sticking the real goods into the metadata, and the metadata kind of ballooned into being the most important part.
Yeah.
My impression is that's not happened with images.
It has, but they're sort of separate formats. Like DICOM is mostly metadata. And in other areas, in CAD formats, so IGES, even old IGES, but even massively more in STEP, this is a huge part of what's in these file formats. And that provides workflows. It helps with workflows, just as our more compound objects allows for more streamlined workflows.
Fair enough. But I mean, okay, fine. YAML. Yeah, okay, good.
So these two config formats were requested by users, and they were easy to add as, again, nested associations.
Good.
So we added both import and export, because users were complaining that the INI format is obsolete, and the YAML and TOML are state of the art.
I mean, those are the things that people are using for build manifests or whatever they are for
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
So we've been revisiting this, okay, with the front-end team, and we want to make sure that there's a recent review of things, that we're leveraging what we can leverage, so we, so that the convenience is there. It's being refreshed, and so you can see there's a standard, the general rule, use the default import element, and then there are exceptions. So
Fine.
so we're going through
I
with
think we have an excuse to have exceptions and just do the best thing we can. Like
exactly.
move into
So
Tabular and things
we're
like
doing that, and we're trying to make that happen with it together with the front end team. And
Okay, I have one comment which I believe got fixed. When you pulled over a file that was too big, you just got $failed. I believe that now does something more sensible, but that's the thing to check. Right? In other words, what it should do is to say, here's the import command that you could have used on this file.
Yes,
Use
that's
it
what
if
it
you want to.
does. I was part of the team that implemented that.
Okay, fine. I'm not quite sure why the drag and drop doesn't work when import does, but I think that's a fine behavior.
So we don't want any progress monitor. You want the
I'd love to have
import
a
command.
progress monitor.
Because there is an open pull request for Markdown. So when you drag and drop Markdown file in 15, theoretically it should open as a new notebook. That's what we want, and it probably even works in the build you have. But yeah, again, the question is, what if the import takes like 10 seconds?
Well, we need a progress monitor,
and I don't think that's implemented yet. That's what.
Okay, we need something. We need at least a spinner. Shouldn't be too hard to implement. Otherwise, you have no idea that you successfully dragged.
Right.
That code already exists in the import framework. That's not too hard. We can do that.
Do it, yeah.
Now, as long as we have some indication that it's coming from a drag and drop, I guess.
Right. Okay. I mean, look, there's a general thing that will be happening soon, which is some kind of summit about more progress monitors. Because I think progress monitors, whenever there's several seconds of delay, are just a win. You don't have to read it if you don't want to. It's going to go away. It's not going to mess up your notebook. But seeing that something is happening is really worthwhile.
The one case that's problematic for progress monitors is if you're trying to batch import like thousands and thousands of files, and even the delay of the progress monitor will have some amount of overhead that becomes noticeable quickly.
Then okay, fine. Then we need to make sure that we're not bringing up a progress monitor if there's not enough time. If it doesn't, look, we could
even introducing that delay has too much latency.
Okay, I'm sure there's a UX solution. Like, for example, that if we see we're importing 3,000 files, it brings up something that just says importing 3,000 files, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, which file it imported. So it's not bringing up a different progress monitor for every file, for example. I don't know how implementationally how that gets batched together, but that I'm not solving that problem right now. But
I see where you're coming from, but that we can't really solve that here right now.
Right. Okay.
The general thing is that it's return and pay attention to these so that they're up to snuff.
Yes.
Like
and one other more positive point is that anything where, like in export of video and whatnot, there's certain places where we know a progress monitor isn't going to cause those kinds of problems, and everywhere that we can, we go ahead and do.
Fine. I mean, we need a generic way to switch off progress monitors. I don't even know whether import has a progress monitoring.
It's dollar progress
option.
monitoring, and it works in import. So that's a good point.
But does import have its own progress monitoring option? Because it should.
Does not.
It needs to. Everything that accesses dollar progress monitoring should have its own progress monitoring option.
I'll have to double check. If it's not there, I'll add it.
Okay. This will be great. Okay. that is just horrifying. I don't even know what that could possibly be.
So there's a little bit of history here. Set file format properties in particular can be really useful if we change the default element or the default option on a format that's extremely widely used, and we have good reason to change that. We don't want to break their entire notebook without giving them a way to set it kind of globally. We don't want them to
Oh, this
change
is
every single
horrifying.
import call.
Yeah, I
I know it
understand.
is, but
We got to
um,
find a better solution. Is this new? Set
well,
file
file format
format property?
properties, no, it's experimental from a couple of versions ago.
It seems utterly horrifying. Let's think about how to solve this correctly. So one of the things, this new, what have we ended up calling it? System settings.
I don't remember what we ended up calling it, but I don't think it solves this problem.
So, yeah. Did you see what this is for, right, Stephen? This is going to an association spec instead of, because they're not options.
These
Right.
things.
They're not options to import and export.
No, I understand that. I understand. But what? This is a mess, and we're not going to solve it right now.
Well, this is the beginning of a
Sure.
solution to the
But
mess.
if you pull file format properties back up, please.
Yeah, just a second.
And so you want this provides a similar mechanism that set options does. So you can set it on a file specific basis.
Yes, but it does a little bit more than that.
Just a minute. Sorry, I'm sorry, I'm back. Yes. Okay, so again, I'm sorry.
Can you reopen set file format properties, the doc page? So this is slightly unique to set options in that you can do things like change the MIME types associations, and then file format changes its behavior kind of under the hood. So if you have some MIME type that you want to register that goes to a particular format, you can do that here. In addition to setting things like the default element and
How
default
do I see
options
everything
now.
that's been set?
File format properties.
So if I just say file format properties, I'll get a open close. I'll get a giant thing.
Yes.
Well, it certainly seems like it's doing everything it can to be giant.
It's loading every single format. It has to.
Progress monitors in case like this would be lovely.
That's not that big, actually. Yeah, so I think that was really loading all the formats, not initializing all the formats, not the output that was so slow.
Mhm. So another really nice thing about this import options thing is that right now, since they are implemented how they are in this kind of they're not actually options way, we have no way to systematically, programmatically query what all the formats are doing. But I do have a notebook where I was able to query all of the options from the docs pages. And so now we'll be able to do some kind of alignment of is what's documented actually implemented.
Okay, that's good. Look, I mean, registering types is a nightmare in basically every operating system.
Right.
Registering these
The,
MIME types is a
the,
huge
the,
mess.
this becomes horrifying no matter what, basically. And I think the same is true for options and elements and import, unfortunately, because we're dealing with the world moving.
Yeah. I don't like this idea of a set file format properties because I think that
I
anything like
don't,
that that has long range global dependence is a formula for horrible things to happen.
No,
Somebody
I
send.
totally agree, because this is for people who have a lot of existing code and we don't want to break all of them. And we kind of try to give these in more specific corner cases for that. But then again, then they're not, using import in the new age for any new code that they write. And that is a problem. And maybe we can make this somehow notebook dependent or something. But I agree with you, but this solves kind of a more important issue.
Well, what thing are you most wanting to solve with the set file format? Is it a MIME type association or something else that you really want to solve with that?
If we change the default element or a default option, we want people to universally change it back so that we don't break their code. And since formats are changing so rapidly, that's becoming more and more the case that it's really clear that we need to change a specific option
Okay.
in, for example, CSV for the modern age.
I don't think these things are going to change that. CSV has changed basically maybe twice.
Well, CSV itself hasn't changed, but
No,
how
I know,
people
but
use it has.
how we want to use it has changed twice. From plain lists to data set to tabular.
From lists to tabular, I think, really. I mean, but in the case
Well,
of
data set was
CSV,
an
it's
option. It was no data set was never made
yes,
the default.
no, it wasn't made the default, and it was just added on top of the lists. It was just a data set conversion anyway.
Well, I think we actually made more changes. They just weren't quite as big.
Well, we implemented the CSV format. When I got here, it was basically just string splitting on commas. That's not what CSV does. Then I implemented the RFC, and then Piotr implemented it on Arrow, which is the super fast, deals with gigabytes and types and everything. But those are the three
Yes.
stages of CSV at the company.
Okay, but okay, we're not going to solve this right now. Let's set this as a thing to discuss. Another meeting. I mean, the changes. What are you changing in this version here?
Well, the really big change is the introduction of import options, going through and actually enumerating those so that you
Okay,
can
which
query
is a
them in the
good
first
thing to
place.
do, right?
Yes,
That's a good
that's
thing
the
to do.
much bigger thing. Set
And
file format properties should be minimized. The important thing is querying here.
right, and I think it's a really great thing to be able to programmatically request what are the options of
Definitely.
format X.
Yeah,
So I think this is an obvious win.
So, what did we eventually decide about the how to find the options? I'm sorry, how to find uh all these things about like the famous example of musical instruments. What did we finally decide about how to do that?
Right, it was going to be primarily a documentation solution, but we were going to add
With click to copy for that table.
right, but for the things that have the improved tagging, there was also going where we were going to extend Wolfram language data, and I would have to look at the notes to look up what was
Okay, all right. So we
the
didn't. So we
syntax,
killed
but
off the idea of a function settings type function.
right. I mean, there was a set we were going to circle back because we saw a need for some additional stuff. Um, so
All right. Well,
maybe
can we?
we can bring this back to the next LCC agenda, and I'll add Sean to make sure that import export stuff can be properly represented. And
Yes.
if
Yeah.
I also
Fine.
need Piotr, Piotr,
Yeah.
you can speak up whether you should be there.
This is import export options related, then yes, I would like to be there. I mean,
Right.
I'm
Sounds good.
doing the actual changes.
Okay. All right. Let's see. Now on to these data connections and things. What should I be looking at here?
But the big thing is here that we're trying to go with the broadest list possible for places that we can get data from, and we're just executing the query. That's the purpose of data connection object. So if you wanted to go to like the O tab, there's a connections section, and you could pull up like,
Boy, this
oh
new
shoot,
docu tools is looking quite nice. Now,
Is
is it not?
data
Is
connection object new, or is that a pre-existing thing I've forgotten about?
data connection object was released in 14.3.
Okay.
So Azure Files and Azure Tables might not have a documentation page yet. Sorry about that. That PR was added yesterday. I am on it, but
It doesn't
so
need PRs.
MariaDB is actually just MySQL. That's not its own page.
What is Databricks? Why isn't that just one?
That
Why
is one
wasn't
word.
it
That's
common?
that's what
Okay.
they call themselves.
No, I
It's
understand,
just
It's not a dash, right?
there's no dash. It's not camel case. It's one word.
yeah.
There was a mistake. However, that slipped in. No idea.
Right. So the idea is to keep this thing as simple as possible and tell you what keys you absolutely need in order to make a connection, which are host and warehouse, which you'll pretty obviously get if you're on a Databricks page. The authentication for every single one of these connections is different in some magical, unique way that takes some time to figure out. So this one takes
This is
a
another
token.
thing that in some future point, that could be one of those inline GUIs coming up, potentially.
Mhm. Yeah, for sure. So this one documents that the association goes to a socket and it has a token there. And if you scroll down, the examples really need some work. I'll say that ahead of time, but they're all actually pretty much the same. I need to fill them in. But the point is that you can copy one of these examples and then you're just filling in host and warehouse and your token. And I can't actually send you anything to run, but if you want to see this running live, I have it working on my machine.
I believe you.
Okay.
So the new
It comes back as
category,
a tabular.
the new category this time around are these multidimensional databases, like data warehouses or OLAP cubes.
Okay, but
Right.
how does that relate to Tabular?
Yeah, so they come in as tabular, typically.
Right. These things come in as tabular, but instead of relational databases where you have this normalized, widespread out things, these are analytics databases where you're answering questions like what are the top 10 customers by lifetime spend or supplier delivery performance or
Actually, the data in these databases is better aligned with tabular than a transaction database, which is just for updating records.
exactly.
Yes.
Yeah. When you do the transaction database, you have to do all these joins and everything to get some final resulting tabulars, but those analytics databases are already structured very well like this.
Abby on our live stream is asking about MongoDB. We have a lot
It's
of
on
work
our
that we did on MongoDB. I mean, we have this whole package. Where is it? Mongo.
So
Mongoling,
Mongo.
isn't
There
it?
is Mongo link, and we absolutely plan to support Mongo and data connection object. It's just nearing the top of the to-do list.
I mean, there's a ton of work that got done on this.
Yes, and we're going to use it. This is a great case of something where the implementation isn't going to be too bad, but we needed some idea of where it belonged in terms of priority and in terms of category.
Yes.
So it's
I
another
mean,
type of database that we're going to get a few of is time series databases.
yes.
Right. That's the thing we're moving on to next is to really, capitalize on the work that we're doing in time series for Tabular.
How do these time series databases relate to a redo of data drop?
I mean, they're just more efficient for storing and manipulating time series. So you have a key column basically that is the dates or the times.
No, I understand, but I mean, if we're using if we're supporting well one of those databases, we could potentially use it as new infrastructure for data drop.
Yeah, potentially. Yes. I mean, they're very they some of them have huge claims on performance.
Right.
I,
Well,
I, I
I mean,
can't
the data
verify
drop
that,
wasn't
but
really, it was not been built for incredibly fast performance. It's been built for flexibility,
Mhm.
which it does quite well at.
Mhm.
But some of the things that we built into data drop, people don't seem to find that useful, that allow much more structured data than one would normally have in a time series database. Ethan on our live stream is asking about connecting to Azure AI search, whatever that is.
That sounds more like in the realm of the kind of
Token
LLM service
connection.
connections type stuff.
I would think so. Not this.
So I'm orthogonal to it.
Right. Yes, Rude is commenting on the value of having a dedicated discovery function rather than something where you have to read documentation. We agree.
Yeah, yes, and that would be the purpose of that one of those inline GUIs, where you can pick what is it that you want to import, and then it knows about the particular authentication schemes that you need for that, and
right,
and maybe there's a unique query language for that particular connection too. They're not all SQL.
What I mean, I don't see graph databases and things like that here. I'm not sure how popular those have become. What as we
I mean,
work through,
they are popular, but it doesn't map to tabular, immediately. I mean, one can do it, obviously, but it's not.
yes,
And
but
so
that's
we're
probably
kind
not
of
where we want to import it. I mean, we've got other good data structures for dealing with graphs, not tabular.
So I've got about 100 connections that I'd like to make as soon as possible, and maybe 15 that are pretty obviously feasible. But the question is if those 15 are actually the most important next one. So we prioritize them and then do some amount of research into can we deliver this in a reasonable amount of time, and then just
Okay.
add as many to the list as we can.
So, as a sample in our own company, we have all kinds of, I think we inventoried at one point a few hundred databases around the company. I seem to remember the number 400. I'm not sure if that's correct.
What do you mean by databases?
Oh, just random different things. The database of, I don't know, people who've come to our summer school or something, or the database, all sorts of different separate instances of databases. I don't mean different database vendors. I mean different instances of databases.
and some of them can be spreadsheets, presumably.
So I mean, you're talking about like the stuff under Francesca.
Most of it is there, but not all of it.
Okay.
I'm just wondering whether we've covered everything that we have in the list that you've got.
Nearly. Mongo is one that we absolutely need to have to cover everything for internal infrastructure, and the other is Hadoop. Both of them are very high on our to-do list, but kind of just lost in priority to making sure that we're up to par with multidimensional
Fine.
and time series databases.
But now
they're
Hadoop, we
coming.
had a lot of elaborate stuff done on that maybe 5 years ago or a little bit more.
Hadoop is a more complicated story just for historical reasons.
Yes, but I mean, don't we have a bunch of code lying around for that?
Not exactly. We have code lying around for that in very secret repositories that only a few people have access to.
Wonderful. Okay. Well, that
But that
project,
code is also like very intimately tied to our secure data. So it would need to be decoupled first and implemented as production code. And that's why that's one of the things on my to-do list to do.
I see. Okay, fair enough. All right, sounds good. Anything else we should go over in this meeting?
I think you covered it.
Okay. See you, Roger, just to make sure we have our logistics straightened out. I think I see you again in about half an hour for another design
Yeah,
review.
we're good. Yeah.
Okay. All right. See you guys soon.